What I'm going to do is I'm going to play some mono stuff in minor first. You hear straight away what vibe I'm going for, right? It's dark, tense. I'm trying to create tension. Now let's do that in chords. Alright, typically sort of minor, very dramatic, also again very effective, has a certain color, but we come to a point where we get a bit bored of it. Now I want to switch the color. In order to switch the color, I'm going to switch the key signature. So now I'm going to play the first phrase in minor, natural minor, and then I'm going to flip on this chord to Dorian. Right, you feel that sort of change in feeling. That natural 6, as I raise that 6 up, it gives me this, what's the word, nostalgic, dreamy, sort of otherworldly, pensive, questioning, unsure, unstable, suspenseful feeling. And I really love the color of Dorian. It is such a beautiful tone. Again, first phrase is going to be in minor with the flat 6. And the next passage, I will flip to Dorian by raising the 6. I'm doing it polyphonically. I won't go into the chords I'm playing. Suffice it to say that I'm raising the 6th degree of the scale. That's all you really need to focus on. Any combination that has that 6th degree raised in it will be a Dorian chord, and anything that has the flat 6 will be a minor chord. It's that simple. And that's the easiest way to understand modal interchange. Now, I can start passages in the Dorian, and then I can flip to the traditional minor. Alright, I can also play root notes because everything's been in C in the root note. I can play root notes in the Dorian or root notes in the minor. So we could play things like D minor that has the A in it. We could play D sharp major. We could play G minor, F major, which is a Dorian chord. Let's go D minor again and back to C. Now on the second interchange, I'll play A flat major, G minor, F major, and C minor. Okay, so those are chords that belong to both modes, both C Aeolian, C natural minor, and C Dorian as well. Alright, so that's a sort of level 1 introduction to modal interchange where I'm just got a voice going in C, and in terms of everything that I play above that sort of bass voice, I can either play in the traditional key signature that has the normal 6, or I can play in the raised 6 and play Dorian. Let's put another voice in here. Let's put some drums in here. Okay, now you can kind of hear the vibe that I'm going for here. It's quite tense. I like this because it started off sounding like a film score. Now it sounds like something we could play in a dance floor like maybe 2 o'clock in the morning, sounding a bit tense and weird. I like it. Alright, now let's play with some of these chord modes over this vibe, right? So, starting with a minor. Okay, I'm going to play the relative major and Dorian chord. And now some Dorian chord sweeps. And now I'm going to change the mode back to minor. Alright, maybe not for the dance, but certainly for an ambient piece of electronic music, I love the modes, which really, really works well. And if you heard that, that was also a modal interchange. Alright, so I think that kind of gets my point across. That's a very simple modal interchange. All we're doing is raising the 6th degree to Dorian. And now I want to show you another possible mode, right? Which is called Phrygian. And that is also a simple change to the traditional minor scale. And all we're going to do is we're going to change 1 degree of the scale to either flat or sharp. And I'll show you exactly how we're going to do that in a moment. All right, guys, so I've got this like really cool groove, and it's kind of musically neutral. And if I want to, of course, I can just carry on playing in the normal minor, right? So this would be like a typical minor riff. I'm going to play over the guitar that's playing. sort of typical, has like a couple of notes from the minor to the minor 6 in this case, which is that defining note of the Iolian scale, right? Right, now I can start moving this into a Phrygian sort of mode, a Phrygian mindset, and a Phrygian tone, just by shifting that 2 away from D into D flat, okay? So, let's try that. Alright, notice the vibe change. Even if I'm not playing complicated riffs at all, just by shifting the mathematics of the scale, you get the vibe of what these sort of modal scales can do, right? Now, I've got some other notes. Of course, we can sort of have that, and we can still have... very typical sort of Phrygian lead. I really like that. Then we can come back to the guitar. Alright, so just examples of like shifting the vibe from minor, which is again beautiful. There's nothing wrong with minor, it's just different colors, right? Here's minor. Now let's switch to Phrygian. Alright, pretty cool. Alright, now again we could flip that to Dorian, we could do up a whole bunch of stuff, but if you go off on a tangent, which it is possible to do, alright, we can also have another sound playing a Phrygian riff, right, which I have over here. Where are you, my friend? There we go, the last channel. It feels like a sort of proper Phrygian vibe now. Come back to this guy one last time. By the way, guys, you see I'm bending a lot. I'm using a lot of like pitch bends, because pitch bends are really the key to making leads sound good, especially in modal scales. I find if you bend up to some of the modal notes, it sounds really cool. So just random tip, very cool to bend. Okay, so guys, I mean, in like 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, we've covered like starting in a minor scale, just C minor. Doesn't matter if you're writing like the darkest techno ever, you're writing film score, you're writing hip hop, you're writing it doesn't matter. It's about being conscious of the key that you're in, right? I could sit here the whole day just doing different styles, and maybe one day we'll do like a live stream where we take like the same scale and we just write like a 20 different genres in that scale, because once you understand harmonics, you can pretty much do anything with that scale. But it's about musical vocabulary. Wherever you take it on the production side, it's about musical vocabulary, all right? And you can hear that by just shifting the musical vocabulary away from traditional minor into a mode like Dorian, which again is just one single note that changes the 6th degree, or into Phrygian, which is another note that changes the flat 2 compared to the normal minor. You get these incredible vibe changes, okay? It opens up almost too many possibilities, because now you can just keep on switching and you can just keep on sort of musically rambling with this endless vocabulary. But if you play solos, it's really exciting. It almost in a way makes it more challenging to really decide which exact chord progression, because there are so many chords. But that's a good problem to have, because when I started composing and in my early years, I would always hit these musical barriers and say, oh, I don't know what the next chord is, or I don't know what a possible change could be to this progression. And as you open up modulations and you open up modal interchanges, you really start getting like an infinite amount of alternative chords and alternative ideas. All right. So I hope, again, this is a massive topic, and YouTube is not the format for 4-hour lessons. So if you want to get into more detail, please come on my Patreon. On my Patreon, we sit down for sometimes for 4 hours and we just go through music theory problems, right? But these series of videos is more about sort of boiling those ideas down into their fundamental core concepts and just showing a few of examples. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what other videos you want to see. I have content coming up on relative majors and minors and a whole bunch of other music theory stuff that we're going to explore. And then, of course, starting to get into more sound design and production-oriented stuff, looking at patches on the modular, looking at my actual workflow for production. Enjoy and, stay creative, and I'll see you guys soon. And let me know what videos you want to see in the future. Have a great day. Bye. All right, guys, so everything you need to know about the Dorian scale and the modal interchange is on your screen now. You can see that compared to the C minor scale, all we do is we raise that 6th degree. In the case of C minor, the 6th degree, which is a flat 6, compared to the major, is A flat, all right? We raise it back to A natural. If you work with sharps, C minor 6th degree is G sharp. We raise it back to A, okay? And by doing that, we have a hybrid scale, the Dorian scale, which is between major and minor. I played a whole bunch of examples of what it sounds like in a film score context. If you want to hear it in a more sort of electronic context, check out some of the stuff on my Spotify. I've got 2 tracks, which I'll put links to on the screen and in the description, and you can check those out for good examples of what Dorian sounds like in an interchange, in a sort of dance track, right? So I feel like this is probably quite a good time to take a quick look at some theory, right? I know not everybody's favorite thing, but unfortunately, in order to really understand this modal thing, we've just got to look at the theory. And when I found this chart that I'm about to show you, it really changed my view on modes and how you can understand and establish and use modes, right? Let's bring the whiteboard up. All right, and hold on a second. Sorry, excuse me. I feel like I want to be in the shot as well. Oh, right. How's that? Yeah, not too bad. I'm going to zoom in a bit here. Weird, you had it in full screen. How did that work? Yeah, the board was like framed in a way where it looked full screen. Ah, there we go. There we go. Cool. All right, let's go. Okay, we're rolling, eh? All right, guys, so I've got a chart here that, as I said, changed the way that I understood modes, right, completely. I really think that it's pretty badly explained. It's actually a really simple concept. Here we've got C major. It's got its 8 natural notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, right? Now, we should know by now that in a minor scale, which is the scale over here, we've got 3 flats, 3, 6, and 7. The 3rd, 6th, and 7th scale degrees are flatted, okay? Flatted compared to the major, of course, right? We're always comparing everything to the major. All right. Now, so here's major with no flats, and here's minor with 3 flats. And over here, I have 2 modes in between them. I've got Mixolydian, which we'll talk about in a separate video. I actually have a video on Mixolydian, but it's not the best quality, but great ideas, but terrible video. But I'll do a video on Mixolydian. That's considered a major mode, and it's basically the major scale with 1 flat. Then we've got the first of the minor modes, right, which is Dorian. Dorian is actually the first minor mode. It has a flat 3, which is what makes it a characteristically minor mode, and it has a flat 7, but it has a natural 6. This is a hybrid mode, you could argue, between major and minor, right? Because here's minor, here's major, and this is sort of like a hybrid mode. All right, so that's the vibe with Dorian. And then you can see that we progress by adding another flat. So we've got no flats in major, one flat in Mixolydian, two flats in Dorian, the flat 3 and the flat 7, and then 3 flats in the minor, natural minor Iolian scale. That is probably the most common scale, all right? 3 notes in the minor scale, the traditional minor, all right? And then we go down and we add another flat. So you see what's happening here? We're progressing from brightest to darkest. Here's the happiest scale. Big smile. Here's a major scale that's got the slight edge from the flat 7. That's Mixolydian. Still smiling, all right? Here's Dorian, which starts to get like happy but complex. Here's minor, starts to get that sad tension, all right? And here's Phrygian, unhappy. Please excuse my ridiculous drawing. Okay, but you know what I'm trying to say is that we're progressing from the happiest possible scale. Now, asterisk, major's not the happiest scale. There's a scale called Lydian. It's the subject of another video. I didn't even want to introduce the Lydian thing because most people know major. So let's call major the happiest scale in terms of modern music that you're ever going to use. And now we're progressing major, Mixolydian, Dorian, minor, and then to this final mode called Phrygian. All right, Phrygian is the last mode. Phrygian is a more minory version of minor, and Dorian is a more majory version of minor. So, just to break this up, these are major modes, these are minor modes. Here's the minor mode that we know and love. Dorian is a slightly more majory version of that minor key. Phrygian is an even more minory version of a minor key. Each time you go down, you get slightly darker and more tense, and Phrygian is sort of like the ultimate version of that. Again, there's one darker than that called Locrian, but no one ever uses it, so I'm not going to teach it today. And Phrygian is like the culmination of darkness, where you've got 4 flats, again, compared to the major, all right? So that is the theory of modes. That, for me, is like modal theory in a couple of very simple lines, all right? There are 5 modes that are relevant that I would say that you should learn, and really you already know 2 of them, which is major and minor. Okay? Correct classical names are Ionian and Aeolian. Right? But what the fuck am I? Ludwig van Schudenhuizen? No. Right? It's 2022. I don't give a fuck about that. We're just going to call it major, right? And minor. But if you want to get technical, Ionian, Mixolydian, Dorian, Aeolian, Phrygian, and the next one's Locrian, and above here is Lydian. All right, so there's the 7 modes, but for our intents and for all intents and purposes. By the way, did anyone think that it used to say for all intensive purposes? Because that's what I thought that phrase used to say. And then I read it, and it said for all intents and purposes. So you didn't know that? There's a helpful tip. Or maybe I'm the only idiot that didn't know that. But here we go. We've got a chart moving from brightest to darkest. We start in heaven. Lovely flute music is playing. Shakira's feeding us grapes. We come down. All right, Mixolydian. Things are getting a little bit more complicated. We're in the almost earthly realm. All right, by the time we're in Dorian, we're halfway between the heavenly realm and the earthly realm. And then in minor, we land in the place of suffering. Right? Place of pure hell. And then by Phrygian, we go even below hell to a place of pure, deathly darkness. And then even below that is Locrian, which is, it's the equivalent of reggaeton, just playing forever in the depths, in the furthest, hottest corner of hell. All right, it's just getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and everybody loves football and rugby and politics. No hot girls, no weed, darkest possible place you can imagine. Okay, that's Locrian mode. So starting in heaven and moving down the escalator toward hell, gradually we have infinite reggaeton and general unpleasantness. All right, so that's it. Now, that's enough modal theory. So where I'm going with this whole thing, guys, is now I'm going to go back and we're going to do part 2, which is I'm going to do a modal interchange and I'm going to use Phrygian mode, all right? And I might even be sneaky and I might actually even use a hybrid between C Dorian C minor and C Phrygian. In other words, taking it from the Dorian as the lightest through natural minor and then to Phrygian. And you can see how many sort of diverse sounds we'll get out of that. All right, so let's rock and roll. Let me kill the whiteboard. Let me bring up Ableton. Where the fuck did Ableton go? Disappeared. There we go. Right. Be like that big, right? I'll be editing in this video first. Sorry, Doug. Yeah, I like that. All right, so all those things being said about Phrygian, let's go in and have a look at some practical examples. So you can see I've got Ableton in the corner of the screen here. And will you bring up the keyboard as well? Mm-hmm. All right, so I got Ableton in the corner of the screen, and I'm going to come back to my film score example just for a second before we move on to a new style, right? All right, so again, I'm back to this neutral phrase where I've got the root note playing in the bass, and then in the section over here, I've just got the minor third and the fourth and the fifth. There's no six, there's no two. That's very important because those are the two notes that can flip us to Dorian on the one side on the 6th degree, or Phrygian on the 2nd degree. All right. So even if I want to do this sort of in the lead, all right, I could flip to Dorian in the lead. That's a sort of Dorian interchange on the lead, all right? Now, let's start working some Phrygian stuff, all right? What about this? You hear that sort of classic, both Middle Eastern sort of ethnic sound to it, but also a dissonant, very dark, very brooding, serious sound. We can do the same thing in the strings, right? Alright, now we could be interchanging across all three modes of minor. So let's start in Aeolian, normal, natural, minor. Then I'm going to sweep into the next octave and I'm going to play Dorian. Alright, and then I'm going to come down to the bottom of that octave and I'm going to play Phrygian. Moment. Okay, now that's a very kind of rough interchange, but there are ways to do this that really sound awesome. I'm going to show you the next example. Just going to do it a bit quicker. Fuck, I had it sounding so good till like a minute ago. Let me just roll. Fuck yeah, let me just keep rolling. Just gonna edit. Alright, starting again, just the last section where I was playing the strings. All right, so now that I've got the Dorian interchange sounding really good, let's try something in Phrygian, all right? All right, so you hear that Phrygian sort of vibe starting to happen in the strings when I'm playing the flat 2, which is really dark, really dissonant. So I basically have the whole minor scale. Right, and I can still play the flat 2. I can also play the flat 2 in the bass, which is really changes the harmony. And it can actually be quite beautiful. It's not just dark and dissonant. It's be really beautiful. Flat 2 in the bass. I actually really do like the flat 2 as a chord, back to normal minor. Alright, and now it's changing to Dorian. Alright, let's let that chill a bit. You gotta have sort of time between these phrases. Alright, now I can do a Phrygian lead, Phrygian string lead. Now I'm going to bring back that sort of lead. Alright, so just examples of, fun stuff for film score that you can do, right? So I think that's kind of enough of that. We've demonstrated how to shift in like a film scorey type, just neutral musical environment, how to switch between the two modes. Now let's get a little bit more focused on the Phrygian mode and just switching from C minor to C Phrygian. So I'm going to stop all of that car chase music. Alright, and let's go. Funny how this works, right? Because I've got this pattern here in this cheesy piano. Alright, and it's kind of cheesy because it's in a cheesy piano. Now if I take the exact same pattern and I put it into a bass sound, it sounds like this. I've got to here, and then let's just unmute this. Alright, so that's the exact same pattern as that cheesy piano, but now it's playing in a cool bass sound, right? Let's put some drums behind that. Okay, I like that. That's cool. Now, coming back to maybe this guitar. Okay, and again, these are all elements that are just in C minor right now, right? Really cool elements, kind of neutral, kind of vibey, nothing complicated going on at all. Now, I have the choice, right? Do I want to stay in normal minor, right? Which again, I can do, and I can even just play in the guitar and I can play a normal minor. Alright, just listening to notes in the scale. Alright, that's a normal minor because it's got the flat 6. Alright, sort of riff in minor. Now that sounds great. Actually, I really like that riff. Right? So I might even, because I don't want to overwrite that, I'm just going to duplicate that. I might even just record that little riff.